Tonight on the Northwestern News Report, how can you prepare for the collision of flu and coronavirus?
And from renaming streets to reclaiming them in rallies, Evanstonians push for racial justice.
Plus, without the roar of Wildcat fans, how are student athletes keeping their head in the game?
Those stories and more tonight on the Northwestern News Report.
It's your news right now.
Good evening and welcome to the Northwestern News Report. I'm Alexa McHale.
And I'm Andrew Rowan.
We start tonight with a coronavirus update. Here at NU, we're halfway through fall quarter, and the university's COVID-19 positivity rate is 0.11% as of Tuesday. NNN's Lindsay Tanney reports.
According to NU's COVID dashboard, from October 2nd to 8th, 7 students, 2 faculty, and 2 staff have tested positive.
I think our students, by and large, have done a very good job. I've been just really impressed with how serious they have taken the pandemic.
The university, working on a plan for winter quarter, announcing another Wildcat wellness period in January, but not whether first and second year students will be invited back to campus. Administrators tell NNN they're pleased with how students are handling the pandemic this quarter.
Luckily, again, for the most part, our students are asymptomatic and otherwise healthy.
Asymptomatic and in isolation. Weinberg Jr. Cole Greenberg quarantined in his off-campus apartment after testing positive for COVID-19.
I didn't feel like sick or I didn't really have breathing issues. And so I got lucky in that way.
Weinberg freshman Jason Temmel, meanwhile, spent the last week in Hinman, the quarantine facility on campus, and still has a week to go.
We literally don't leave the room, so it's not easy. I mean, it's rough, but hopefully 2 weeks and then we're out.
And what have you learned from this experience?
I'm going to be a lot more careful about coronavirus when I get out.
Speaking of being careful, how's weekly testing going? The GIBB Center is the designated COVID testing facility on campus where 5,000 tests are being administered weekly for students who are asymptomatic.
We're getting them through that site as fast as we can and trying to make it, as painless as possible.
University leaders say they're willing to hear how they can improve.
I think everyone's very open to those, again, that set of feedback to figure out how do we do this even better. So I would encourage students to raise those issues wherever they feel appropriate.
Some students don't like the group testing method.
It shouldn't be in a group. I get it's easier for them, but it just feels unsafe.
But administrators do feel confident in the accuracy of these tests.
We're seeing from a lab result perspective, the samples are all coming back clean. We're seeing very, very low percentages of the kind of inconclusive test results. So I think that means that people are figuring it out and it's working.
Students and administrators working together to fight the spread of the virus. Lindsay Tanney, Northwestern News Network.
I'm Vicki Chung. With flu season right around the corner and the ongoing pandemic, doctors are worried that the two viruses could be a recipe for disaster. Northwestern immediate care physician Dr. Sindhu Adderson is worried for healthcare workers in particular.
The worry is if we have a pretty bad flu season, it can put a strain on our healthcare system.
Students are also wary of the coming months.
During flu season, if you get the flu, or if you get corona, you might think you just have the flu, or vice versa, and I think that's also kind of worrisome.
One key difference to help you determine which illness you have.
Some symptoms of COVID that are very specific to COVID are lack of taste or smell. That is something that we're seeing is very typical of COVID, that is unlike the flu.
There are simple steps you can take on or off campus to help slow the spread of both viruses. Continue social distancing and wearing a mask, and the flu shot is the best way to protect you from the flu.
Yeah, ideally what we say is to get flu before boo. So we would encourage people to get their flu shot before Halloween to give them some protection into the flu season.
A reminder, extra important this year, to not throw away your shot. Vicki Chung, Northwestern News Network.
If you have symptoms of COVID-19, call the University Health Center, 847-491-8100 to schedule your test at Searle. The GIBB Center is also testing if you're asymptomatic.
This week, we commemorate Indigenous Peoples Day. The Northwestern campus sits on the homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi. NNN's Cami Tirico has the story.
Since 2016, Evanston and Northwestern officially recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, celebrating Native American cultures.
We're celebrating our survival. There have been a lot of terrible things that have happened, but we're still here, and that's an important thing to celebrate.
Indigenous Peoples Day is recognized in many ways, including the Indigenous Peoples Day concert in Chicago, co-sponsored by the Northwestern Center for Native American and Indigenous Research. This year, a virtual concert.
What the event entails is it's mostly just focusing on music and showcasing Native Americans and Indigenous culture.
The concert aired Monday, showcasing Native American music and teaching history about Native Americans, Columbus, and colonization.
The arrival of Columbus also meant the arrival of genocide and, the loss of our way of life.
A reminder that Native culture is part of both our campus history and its fabric today.
Mainstream society is moving toward an appreciation for its Indigenous people and diversity and equity.
Acknowledging a dark chapter in American history while moving towards justice. Cami Tirico, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Cami. For those interested in learning more about the Indigenous history in Evanston, there is an Indigenous tour of Northwestern on the website for the Center for Native American and Indigenous Research. You can find that website at cnair.northwestern.edu.
Hundreds attended a peaceful march and rally in Evanston on October 3rd. That was led by the families of Jacob Blake and Breonna Taylor, sponsored by Evanston Fight for Black Lives, the Rainbow Push Coalition, and the Jacob Blake Foundation. The rally featured speeches, a march, and chants. Towards the end, Letitra Weidman, Jacob Blake's sister, FaceTimed Blake to show him the crowd's support. Attendees stood and marched, quote, united in the fight for justice and equality.
For someone to oppose the movement or protect what's going on with police in America after making eye contact or after hearing the families of these victims speak, I think for anybody it would cast a new perspective.
Allen also says a lot of the messages at the rally focused on taking one's support of Black lives and justice to the polls or mailboxes.
Last week, Evanston City Council approved a resolution to rename part of Dodge Avenue to Black Lives Matter Way. The renaming comes after Evanstonians painted a Black Lives Matter mural in front of Evanston Township High School this summer. After fears arose about the mural weathering Evanston's winter, the city found a more permanent solution by renaming the street. Alderman Peter Braithwaite pushed for the street to be renamed.
We need to do more than just display art. We need to continue to be aggressive with advocating for issues that pertain to black residents in town. We need to continue to fight for equity and inclusivity.
The alderman says the city will also examine its budget in the future to find other ways to preserve the mural.
There are less than 3 weeks to go until election night in America. With the NU community spread across the country, students are working to mobilize the vote. NNN's Lauren Hutner reports.
When it comes to voter registration, Northwestern excels. According to Northwestern Center for Civic Engagement, in 2016, 91% of NU students registered to vote. That's 20% above the national average.
Consistently, Northwestern has great turnout above average for our age group and for college campuses.
But with many students far from campus, it can be hard to encourage classmates to vote.
We've kind of had to adapt, so we were not able to do our in-person voter registration push for first years.
And even with no in-person voter registration drives, there are plenty of online options.
We have relied a lot on our online tools in partnership with Vote.org and some other organizations.
Whether on or off campus, Northwestern students are helping mobilize the vote in their home communities. candidates. I do a lot of phone banking for Joe Biden and John Hickenlooper, and I also do phone banking for just generally getting out the vote and getting people to register.
Students know their vote directly impacts their lives.
We want students to see themselves as voters. We have just as much of a right as anyone in any other age group to be voting and to have our voices heard.
From the Rocky Mountains to Lake Michigan, students helping get out the vote. Lauren Hutner, Northwestern News Network.
If you haven't registered to vote or need to request an absentee ballot, you can log on to the NU Votes website and use their online tools.
Following spring quarter's pass-fail grading system, fall quarter's return to traditional grading is met with some mixed marks. NNN's Zach Miller on why it isn't as easy as ABC.
This fall, the university returns to ABC grading, and pass-fail classes no longer count towards requirements for majors and minors. This means that for many students, taking classes pass-fail isn't a viable option anymore. Now, some students are circulating a petition to extend the benefits of taking classes pass-fail. If enacted, students would be able to count pass-fail credits towards their majors and minors.
There's still people who are don't have the resources to catch up or just are on a completely different time zone that makes not just school life, but also extracurriculars and looking for a job and just life in general more difficult.
Other universities, including Georgetown and Johns Hopkins, have recently passed similar measures. These changes were meant to reduce inequities in the online learning process.
Discussing whatever you're learning in class, being able to ask questions and question what you are learning. And if you can't do that properly, then I think, but we think that you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage than other people who can.
Over the weekend, Northwestern's Associated Student Government let students vote on a shortened version of the circulating petition. The measure passed with more than 85% of students voting in favor of expanding pass-fail grades. This means that the student government will officially endorse the proposed changes, but the final decision will ultimately be up to the dean of each school and the university administration. Zach Miller, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Zach. Coming up, does climate change put lake levels in hot water? We'll have that story coming up when the Northwestern News Report returns.
At Northwestern, we're Wildcats in every way.
Welcome back. A Northwestern construction project along the Lakeville addresses rising water levels. Is this a short-term problem or a climate crisis? NNN's Joey Safchik dives into the story.
For so many members of the Northwestern community, the Lakeville is our campus's pride and joy. This construction project, which begins here on South Campus at the Regenstein Bridge and extends up north to Martin Stadium, is now underway in hopes of keeping our Lakeville from being underwater.
A campus construction project keeping the lakefront out of troubled waters.
The last couple of years, the lake levels have been rising, and this past summer we experienced record level lake levels for 8 months.
The emergency undertaking a short-term solution to what water scientists say could be a long-term problem.
We felt that we needed to act upon it quickly.
As waves splash higher and higher, NU fencing off the lakefront path, using heavy-duty sandbags for about 3 more feet of protection against further erosion.
We don't want, waves overtopping and hit pedestrians or bikers as they go along the path there.
Already along NU's Lakeville, evidence of erosion. Much of the man-made beach by the sailing center now submerged in lake water.
Do we have to worry about this long term?
There's not enough data to tell if these variations in lake level are natural ebb and flow or a product of the changing climate.
We don't know if it's worse now or going to continue to get further worse because of climate change.
According to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the lake hit a record low in 2013, while reaching record high water levels this year.
Does it raise a red flag that less than a decade ago in 2013, water levels were extremely low, and then these past few years they've been record or near record high?
Yes, it does make us concerned that we're going to see these big fluctuations even more.
For now, construction continues, bracing campus come winter and high water. Joey Safchik, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Joey. NU facilities say construction is expected to be completed by the end of the year.
Gamma Phi Beta was the first sorority on Northwestern's campus this year to disband, and now students and alumni are continuing conversations about reform and abolition of Northwestern's Greek life. NNN's Vanessa Nelson reports.
Northwestern alumni speaking up in light of Gamma Phi Beta's disbandment. Emma Hill, a Gamma Phi Beta alumna, is in favor of abolition.
Reading the stories that were on that Instagram post were just like, they were horrifying. And also reading them, I was like, wait, I knew about some of this.
Those stories on an Instagram account at Abolish NU Greek Life, where students and alum can share their experiences with the Greek system. Hill says abolition is the only option.
Do you think that the system can be reformed?
No. No.
But many other alumni support reforming the system instead. Clashes between alumni supporting reform and abolition occurred on a now deleted Facebook page, Save Gamma Phi Beta.
This is life. Do you let everybody on the Northwestern football team that wants to play?
Karen Batchelder says Greek life shouldn't be canceled because of exclusivity.
I don't think you have the right to say we're just going to cancel the entirety of Greek life.
But current students fight this sentiment.
I have every ism and phobia in the book of like why Greek life sucks. Like it's like racist, sexist, classist, elitist, like it's transphobic and homophobic, and like there's just like so many things that like you can see in these stories.
Alumni looking back on their college experience while current students look to the future of Greek life. Vanessa Kelson, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Vanessa. With classes moved virtual, how are professors identifying students who need extra help? NNN's Megan Leibowitz reports.
It doesn't look like a normal lab, but chemistry professor Veronica BERNS is finding solutions.
I had to kind of revisit exactly what my expectations are for a lab course.
With her freshman students on Zoom, BERNS is resorting to online and at-home experiments.
It just feels so different when you're standing next to somebody versus a big camera in between you two.
But when professors teach over Zoom, how do they identify and help students who need extra support?
Intro chemistry is kind of killing me.
Freshman Franny Bengtson started going to online peer tutoring in office hours when she realized she needed help. But online resources pose challenges.
Taking tests, I feel like I'm a very tactile person and I need to be able to touch it and like write all over it, and that's obviously not possible if your test is online.
BERNS is one of Bengtson's professors, and she created an anonymous Dropbox on Canvas so students can feel more comfortable asking for help.
Someone can tell me these deadlines are moving too fast.
And BERNS isn't the only one.
We keep rethinking what's the best way to deliver services.
Professor Barbara Schwamm is the director of the Peer Guided Help Center, The Writing Place.
I don't need to micromanage them. I just need to support them.
This means extended hours at the writing place and checking in with students if they seem to be falling behind.
Did they not turn something in? Rather than say no credit, say what's going on?
Professors rewriting expectations, helping students find the right path forward. Megan Leibowitz, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Megan. If you need extra help, you can find resources on NU's academic support webpage.
Amid the coronavirus pandemic, bedrooms are the new classrooms. But one local organization is working to make school as easy as ABC. NNN's MIKAYLA DENAULT takes us into Books and Breakfast's next chapter.
Schools during the pandemic have debated on methods of teaching to promote the safety and success of their students. Some schools have opened, like this elementary school behind me, and others in Evanston have made community possible virtually through a special morning wake-up.
Good morning, everyone.
Smiles fill the screen as Books and Breakfast helps students wake up.
And then building on the strengths of what we've always done is like focused on this one-on-one connection that makes kind of this safe platform for learning.
Normally, the Evanston-based program works with local schools, bringing a nutritious breakfast and academic support.
You know, Books and Breakfast staff members will tell you that in the future they hope that a program like Books and Breakfast is no longer needed because We've achieved new levels of equity and accountability in our school system.
Northwestern tutors who work with the organization, turning the page in the COVID chapter, working with students on Zoom.
When we left off our call, I asked her like, oh, if there's one word that you could describe how you're feeling right now, what would it be? And she was like, I would say happy. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh.
Connecting through learning, hoping every virtual session is one for the books. MIKAYLA DENAULT, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, MIKAYLA. Now, Northwestern students interested in getting involved can visit their website at booksbreakfast.org/volunteer.
Coming up, how are student athletes adapting to silent stadiums?
Go you Northwestern! Go Northwestern, break right through that. With our colors flying, we will cheer you all to go. Go you Northwestern, fight for victory, sweet victory, spread for the fame of our fair name, and go Northwestern, win that game. Go Cats!
Welcome back. Northwestern football is just around the corner, but this year, the players are in charge of bringing their own team spirit. Jack Leto reports.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Northwestern Wildcats.
This fall, we won't hear the roar of the crowd at Ryan Field. Every Big Ten stadium will look and sound like this.
You know, the biggest difference, obviously, is just the fans. That's what we're going to miss the most. Having that energy, having that, that edge is going to be tough this season. That's the biggest difference.
So how do you take the excitement and energy of 47,000 and harness it in an empty stadium? For linebacker Blake Gallagher, it's about 4 letters.
BYOJ, it's bring your own juice this year. Just having that energy and that juice flying around, and that's going to be more important this year than it ever is with the absence of a crowd.
Northwestern players have been bringing the juice in practice for months, and aside from face coverings, they don't look or sound all that different.
Much better today, huh? Yes.
At Ryan Field, the student section, band, and spirit squad usually get the stadium riled up, but they won't be in the stands this year.
Really, it's going to have to come from us. It's unfortunate we're not going to be able to have great fans at the games. We definitely feed off of that. So having the ability to adapt, I think that's been so important this year. Overall, is adapting to whatever comes at us. Ultimately, we're gonna make some plays and we're gonna get excited.
Wildcats, now more than ever, keeping their head in the game. Jack Leto, Northwestern News Network.
It's not an ordinary season, but NU student athletes are working hard to make the most of this year.
One thing that my coach tells us every single day at practice is, just be thankful for the now.
Some sports, like football and basketball, know they'll get a season this year, while others aren't so sure. With or without a season, they're all doing their best to be the best.
Just keep working hard and making sure that we're making strides. There's only 3 freshmen, so we're really involved with everything, playing a lot. So just making sure we're going to get the same result we got last year.
Student athletes are focusing on the now, and they're grateful for what they can still accomplish.
So right now, everyone is just grateful that we can practice and get to the most out of it.
They say they want to be ready to win when the world goes back to normal.
Doing whatever we can right now, which is to train to our best, to be the best when the call comes. And when the call comes, we will be ready.
While COVID may have changed the game physically, it certainly hasn't changed the game socially. Athletes say dealing with the pandemic has brought them even closer.
We're all a little frustrated with, that we just can't jump into things. And I think that's brought us together.
It seems like even COVID can't stop teammates from being teammates. Claire Foltz, Northwestern News Network.
One of the first sports to hit the field again, football. The Cats will open their 9-game season on October 24th at Ryan Field against Maryland.
The pandemic is turning our lives upside down this year, but even with the curtain down, COVID can't stop the beat for NU artists, and it ends Elizabeth Betts tunes us in.
Kaylin Hauser is dancing through the pandemic.
I've still created in quarantine, like
my own choreography actually, like, you know, just having time for myself, I was able to like express myself.
One way Hauser is staying in shape, completing Beyonce's My Power Challenge from Black is King. Hauser, also finding a new dance community, is a new member of Fusion, a Northwestern dance team.
For a virtual space, I was still sort of nervous. If you know, were messing up on some of the choreo, you can turn the camera off if you want to refresh and then turn it back on if you know, so there's like ways to make yourself like at ease.
Nia Robles says her art is usually inspired by nature. So while quarantine limits the amount of time she spends outdoors, she's finding new inspiration.
I just wrote poems about like being in quarantine, not feeling time. Sometimes frustrations that I feel about the world right now. The room is like really, really white. Like it's literally all white. It's like something like similar to this, but it's bigger and my bed is white. Like my bed sheets are white. My sheets, everything, like my blankets are white. Everything is white. And it has like this, I say it in Spanish, like el blanco estéril de mi cuarto, which is like, you know, sterile.
Proving quarantine can't cancel creativity. Elizabeth Betts, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Evanston's famed Harley Clark Mansion, empty since 2015. Now, the city is looking at proposals to bring new life to the historic building. Here's NNN's Gabrielle Coriati.
Just a few blocks from campus, the Harley Clark Mansion was once a Northwestern fraternity house, then an art center. And now, 4 local groups are hoping to restore the space.
Harley Clark at the moment, there are so many people interested in it and several groups that are concerned with its welfare.
The city, reviewing proposals from Artists Bookhouse, the Evanston Conservancy, Evanston Community Lake House and Gardens, and one community museum, are currently being reviewed by the city manager's office.
The Harley Clark Mansion was slated to be torn down, and there was a referendum held a couple years ago where 80% of the citizens voted in favor of saving it.
Artists Bookhouse wants to make the mansion into a center for all things reading related.
So the plan is a center that would be, first of all, a school. So there would be classes on writing.
Evanston Community Lake House and Gardens hopes to make an inclusive space. One community museum intends to create a space dedicated to environmental sustainability, and the Evanston Conservancy plans to build a nature-based preschool and community art spaces.
Our plan is to restore it, have a sustainable business plan with tenants that pay rent, and in turn offer services to the greater community.
A community space for a new generation of Evanstonians. Gabrielle Coriati, Northwestern News Network.
Thanks, Gabrielle. The city manager's office is currently reviewing the projects to determine which one has the most potential to enhance the city. And when we come back, how first years are finding new friends during the pandemic. Finally tonight, this quarter is definitely not the fall quarter new students envisioned. But across the world, Wildcats are reminding one another that they've got a friend. NNN's Simone Scott has tonight's closer.
NU students around the world are building bonds on social media.
I feel like that everyone, not just me in general, are seeking to make deeper friendships, and everyone is putting in more effort because they know that it's hard to make friendships during a pandemic, and we're all hoping that we can stay connected once we're on campus.
Students in the Chicago area are finding ways to safely connect in person too.
I would say that these relationships will kind of last just because of how unique the whole situation is, like with coronavirus and everything.
It can be scary for new students to make friends, and the pandemic has made that even more difficult. But that hasn't stopped student leaders from finding creative ways to connect students scattered across the world.
It's been really difficult. The freshmen are really, like, I think the number one concern that I heard from all of them was that they were scared of, like, how am I going to make friends? How am I going to meet people? But I've been doing lots of, like, Zoom game nights because I think that really bonds people, just to kind of get people to, like, open up.
Virtual friendships are forming as new students hope to Zoom onto campus next quarter. Simone Scott, Northwestern News Network.
That's all the time we have for tonight. I'm Alexa McHale.
And I'm Andrew Rowan.